Yes, later. So it doesn't work like, say, our phone or devices that have GPS. On Friday evening, the FBI and sheriff's investigators detained and released four people after a lead prompted a search of a home about 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's and a traffic stop near a Culver's restaurant. Also this week, the FBI
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Rabbi Czapnik.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Michelle, you asked me a few weeks ago about in Beshalach, the spacing by the Shira, by the song by the sea. Why the spacing? I told you partially because it's a song. I saw another interesting interpretation, because the words have a lot of meaning before and after, in past and in future. So that's another reason why there's a spacing between them.
Oh, thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Okay.
Thank you.
Parshat Terumah. Now, if we're going to have time, I'll go a little bit back last week's because we missed last week's. But let's talk about Terumah. I don't know how many of you saw to separate between the holy and the mundane. The first of the Indiana Jones movies, The Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay, so the ark that they were referring to there is something we're going to learn about in this week's Parsha. It was the holy ark that was in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, which we'll talk about as well. But I do want to mention something that even if I don't get back to last week's portion, very, very important to know is the statement, an eye for an eye. And the world interprets that if someone knocks your eye out, you knock out their eye. But that's not what it means by Jewish law. And that's the important aspect of the oral Torah, which tells us the meaning of the words. So when it says an eye for an eye, it means not literally an eye, because there's no benefit to the person who lost an eye. It means financial remuneration. That if someone knocks out another person's eye intentionally or even inadvertently, they have to pay compensation, a bunch of series of things, the doctor bills, the loss of work, et cetera, et cetera. No, you're not suing them.
Saying they gotta pay.
Yes.
But suing me.
Yes, but well, today in America you can sue for almost anything for anything, but here there's a more strict guidelines about what the payment would be. But I'm just saying it's important to realize that when the Torah says an eye for an eye, it's not literal. That's an important classical example of the importance of having the oral Torah to help us understand the written Torah. I hope that's clear. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. All right. So teruma means a separation or setting aside a portion. So God is telling the Jewish people now, according to many opinions, the Torah is not in chronological order. That the story of Parshat Terumah is really related to something after what's going to happen in a few weeks in the Torah that deals with the sin of the golden calf, which we'll get to, God willing, in a few weeks. But the idea was that the Jewish people should have a physical manifestation of a spiritual place. So Hashem, God told Moshe to take a portion from the Jewish people to create this tabernacle. The tabernacle is a portable temple that's going to be mobile, a mobile temple that will accompany the Jewish people while they're traveling in the desert, as opposed to when they will come into the land of Israel, eventually build the temple in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount. So this is going to be the mobile temple that goes along with them, with the holy vessels that are in the temple. And Parshat Terumah is the commandment. Now, the question that the commentaries ask is, why does it say, and you should take a separation? It should be, you should give. Why take? Sounds like the wrong word. And the answer is a very important answer. And the answer is that the greatest form of taking is to give. It's counterintuitive, but the greatest form of taking is to give. When you're giving, that's when you're ultimately taking for yourself. There was a story of a rabbi who was an advisor to a king, and the non-Jewish advisor was very jealous of him.
What do you think of the portion that you shall take from the gold and silver? Things of what says shot.
Okay, can you, Alina, hang on. So, the non-Jewish advisor decided to tell the king terrible things about this Jewish rabbi advisor who he said was stealing funds. And the king knew that this rabbi was very honest and didn't buy it. But, when someone keeps on telling you bad things about somebody else in the ear, you would stop believing it. And finally, he calls him in and says, Rabbi, what are your assets? And he told him what his assets were. And they were significant, but the king was like a little disappointed because he knew his assets were more than that. So he was like wondering about this. So he had a whole set. I won't go to the whole story now because I don't have the time. But basically, the evil non-Jewish advisor got killed, and the king saw that the righteous rabbi must be righteous because the other guy was miraculously taken out of the way. But he calls in the rabbi and says, "I don't understand. I did ask you what you have, and you gave me a number which is significant, but I know you have more things." So the rabbi told him, "You have to understand, Your Majesty, that all the other things I have, in 1 minute, you could take all of them away from me. The number I gave you is the amount of charity that I gave. And that no one can take away from me. Because that charity that I gave, and that's on my account in heaven, no one can take that away from me." So when he's saying that you should take from me a portion, it's really telling us this important lesson of the power and importance of tzedakah. And what happens is, there's another story of the great Rav, the great Hasidic master, who someone came to him for money, and he told him, "Go to this and this man and tell him I said he should give you a significant amount of money." And when the man came to that person, the rabbi said, I'm not going to give you. So he went back to the rabbi and he said, "Okay, he doesn't want to give you? Okay, so go to this other fellow and ask him for it." And the second fellow that he sent was a man of less means, but when he heard the Rav said he should give that money, so he pulled together resources and borrowed and did whatever he could and gave the poor man the money. What does that mean?
Yeah, what's it? One said no one's.
And this one gave him. So that's what he did. So then the one who had the money all of a sudden started noticing that his going down. So he came to the Rebbe and he said, like, what's the story? What's going on? What happened here? So the Rebbe told him, you have to understand that when I was in heaven, God wanted me to give me a lot of money. I didn't want to have the headache of it. But I said, give it to the people who follow me. And when I need it, I'll ask them for it. So I needed some of the money to help this poor man. You didn't want to give it. So that means you're not a good caretaker of the money that God gave you for me. So now you're going to lose your assets. The other fellow who didn't have the money, who gave it, now he's a worthy, there's tissues in the back. Oh, you haven't? He's a worthy gatekeeper of the money, so he's going to get the money. So we have to understand that when we have money, it's not just for use for ourselves, it's given to us as we are the people in charge to make sure to distribute it. And there's halakhic parameters of how much to give, etc. You don't have to give away all your money, etc. But be that as it may, so there's a whole list of things that the Jewish people are told that they can donate, and it's gold, silver, and copper. Interestingly enough, one of the commentaries says that it represents 3 different types of giving. The gold standard, if you will, is giving even when nothing's going on, just the right thing to do, you're going to do it. You're going to give out. Silver is things are getting a little bit difficult, so you want to give some charity to grease the wheels. And copper is where, I mean, it's a mitzvah to give, but it's like, oh, I'm really desperate. I need to do something, so I'm going to give. So the intention is not as pure, but it's still a good thing to do. And what's going to happen? What is this place going to be, this tabernacle that we're talking about making? It's going to be a place of service of the Almighty, where there's going to be prayer and sacrifices to atone for individual and communal sins. It's going to be a place of holiness, where the divine presence will rest in this house of God. And it had open miracles that were there on a regular basis. So really, God is really everywhere. He doesn't need his own house. But after the sin of the golden calf, which we'll learn about, this will be a place that they could, if you will, for lack of a better term, I'll use a modern term, a charging station, where we could charge our spiritual batteries there. Interestingly enough, and we're going to learn about the vessels that were inside, and this was really a microcosm of creation, is what these things were. And the verse says, "V'asali migdash," you should make a sanctuary, v'shachanti b'seicham, and I will live among them. And the question is, why should it say live among them? It should be, and I'll make for me a sanctuary, and I will live in it. The Hebrew sounds like it wasn't edited properly. But the Almighty is really saying, no, the goal is for us to make ourselves a sanctuary within ourselves so God can rest within us. And that's an important idea of what we can do to make ourselves a sanctuary for God to live among us. Yeah. Yes.
Jewish people, they were worshiping the golden calf, but we don't.
Not yet. We're not up to that yet.
Oh.
We're not getting into that now. I said we're going to do that in a few weeks. They weren't really worshiping it. That's another story. We'll get to it in a few weeks, God willing. So how do we make ourselves a sanctuary for God to rest among us? So that's the study of Torah, doing mitzvahs, fulfilling commandments, doing acts of loving kindness, having humility. Though we don't have a temple, we can still make ourselves and our lives a house for God to dwell within us. So the Parsha goes through the vessels. The first one we learn about is the Aron, the ark. The ark was actually made out of 3 boxes. There was the outer one made out of gold, the inner one made out of gold, and the middle one made out of wood. And the 3 boxes represent the ark is what had in it. It had the tablets and it had the Torah. It actually, interesting, one of the comments says the 3 boxes represent Tanakh. Tanakh, are the 3 parts of the written Torah. Torah, the 5 books of Moses, Nevi'im, the book of prophets, and the Chaf stands for Kesuvim, the writings. So there's the Megillos. There's just a lot of different parts of the written Torah that are represented by the 3 boxes of it. Now, what's the significance of the gold on the outside and the gold on the inside? The significance is that we should try to be consistent both in public and in private. And that's, by human nature, we're not that way necessarily. There's a famous story with Socrates, who was caught doing something unbecoming morally. And they asked him, Socrates, you're this, the Chamashim over there. Oh, then okay. Your Socrates, a famous philosopher. He says, no, when I'm Socrates the philosopher. Now I'm just Socrates the man. And that's really not what the Torah wants us to be. It wants us to be consistent both externally and internally. And it's not easy. It's a challenge. That's not, we have to remember that God is watching. Yeah.
in your home the way you're acting outside?
Right. It doesn't necessarily home, but yes, in private as well as in public. Correct.
So if you're dressing sneas outside, you should also dress sneas.
Modestly,
Inside.
it's appropriate, right? Appropriate to be that way. Correct. You're welcome. Now there were rods. Now, if you want to see an artistic rendering of the Aron, you can see that in the art school Chumash, which is on the back shelves here. I'll give you the page numbers for it if you want to look inside. Take a look on the bottom page 447. You'll see there is a you see the outer box with the crown around it. Again, page 447 on the bottom. And then there's the two cherubs on top, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the rods that we use for carrying it, those always had to stay in the ark. And they represent those who support Torah, the people who provide the financial assistance to allow people to study and have places of study. They can't be removed because they get the tremendous credit for all the learning that goes on. Now the cherubs that are on top had faces of a boy and a girl, but they were angelic figures that with wings. And depending on the level of the Jewish people, that's what happened. When they were when doing the right thing, then the cherubs would be close facing each other, and if they were not doing the right thing, they would turn away from each other. Interestingly enough, when the first temple was destroyed, and they came into the temple, they noticed that the two cherubs were facing each other, which everyone was surprised about. The enemies of the Jewish people made fun of it. Why are this is what they're worshiping? And the question from a Jewish perspective is, if the cherubs separated depending on the distance, when the temple was being separated, was being destroyed, then the cherubs should have been be apart. And the commentaries say, yes, what are you showing me? I know me. Thank you. I don't know. Okay, whatever you got. In any event, so the commentators say some beautiful answers. Why were the cherubs close? Number one, God took out his anger at the Jewish people, not on the Jewish people totally, but on the buildings when the temple was destroyed. So there was, even in the time of the destruction, there was a closeness that way. And another beautiful answer is, Jewish law dictates that if a couple is going to be apart from each other, or whatever, they're going on a trip, he or she are going on a trip, then the night before they leave, they should be intimate with each other. So God is sort of leaving his home because the temple is being destroyed. So the cherubs are close together to indicate a closeness to the Jewish people, to the Jewish people. So the next vessel is the shulchan, the table. The table, which you can see on the bottom of page 449, was again inside the Mishkan, and inside eventually the temple, and it had shelves on it with 12 loaves of bread, the lechem apanim, the showbread, that every week was made. It had a miracle that the lechem apanim, always the special showbread, stayed fresh for the entire week. And this represents, if the Aron represents the written Torah, then the shulchan represents, the table represents physical sustenance. And our table should also be a place of not only physical sustenance, but spiritual sustenance. People talking about the Torah portion of the week. I mean, I send home, as many of you know, I teach 5-6-year-olds. I send home a Parsha question sheet, a sheet about what we learned about the Torah portion, and that many of the parents do at the Shabbos table, which is a very beautiful thing. And these little kids can really know a lot. They retain a lot of information. And that's a very, very nice thing. It elevates the table. You also have a table, you have guests there, invite the poor in, so that's the shulchan with the lechem apanim, the shobra. Again, there was a miracle that the bread stayed fresh a whole week. It was not frozen, was not put into plastic bags. And next comes the menorah, with its very, very detailed, was made out of one piece, bottom page 451. And it had how many lights? 7, right. That's a trick question because we think about Hanukkah, it's 8, but the one in the temple had 7. And that represents, could be the 7 days of the week. And the middle one, which was the most important one, would represent which day? Shabbos, correct. And the outer ones would be lit facing toward the center ones. Also, the 7 lights, the 6 of the 7 lights represent the 6 parts of the oral Torah. So I'm going to go through what they are. Zeroim is, so the Mishnah, okay, let's back up a little bit. The Mishnah that was written down, and later on the Gemara that was written down, initially was oral, but then because Jews were persecution, were forgetting, so the rabbis decided to write it down. So Shas stands for Shisha Sidre, the 6 orders. So when we use the word Shas, we talk about the entire Talmud, but the word actually stands for Shisha Sidre, the 6 orders. And the 6 orders are Zeroim, that has to do with seeds, literally that means the laws of blessings and prayer, and things related to the land. Kachim is holiness, that represents sacrifices and purity. Taharis is Kachim is things in the temple, sacrifices. Taharis is purity. Nashim has to do with marriage and divorce. Nezikin are damages. Moed is holidays. So we have 6 parts, but we have 7 lights. But the middle light is fear of heaven. So you have the 3 and 3. So it's the oral Torah, the 6 parts of the Mishnah and of the Talmud, and the middle one, it represents fear of heaven. And that's the light of Torah and the oral Torah.
Mishnah is the oral Torah?
Mishnah is the first part of the oral Torah, and the Talmud is the second part that has the Mishnah in it. If you look on page 457, we have the crush and the boards for the outside. Now remember, I said it had to be mobile. So that means that it had to be able to be taken apart and put back together again. So these were the walls were made out of these boards that were interconnected with each other. And those were taken apart and put back together again. On page, not every day, whenever they moved. When they were in one place, they could keep it. When they were not, they were able to take it apart and move it. On page 461, you see the copper altar that was used to bring sacrifices on.
They put back.
Animal sacrifice. They did do animal sacrifice. They did sometimes birds, sometimes just flour. Well, it's for a wide range of things. We're going to get to it eventually, God willing. It's for atoning for sins. It's for being closer to the Almighty. Yes, they did. Animals, not people. And the altar had one of the miracles that the fire never went out. The fire on it never went out. So we had 3 things. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos tells us the world stands on Torah, the study of Torah, service to God, and acts of loving kindness. So in the Mishkan, they had 3 things. They had the Aron, the ark, that represented Torah. The altar represented service, and the table represented acts of loving kindness. So these things were there as well. Now, interesting, we're going to find that there was another altar we're going to learn about another week that had a crown on it. So the sages tell us there are three crowns. There's the crown of Torah, the crown of being a Kohen, which and the crown of kingship. So the crown of Torah is represented by the little crown on the ark. The crown of Kahuna represents the golden altar, which was on the inside. And then the crown of kingship represents the crown that was on the table. So which crown is the most important crown? The crown of Torah, of priesthood, or of kingship? Why Torah? And the answer is because the crown of kingship could only be from the family of David. The crown of Kohen could only be from the family of Aaron. But the crown of Torah, everybody can wear if they learn it.
That about Queen Esther, Mishnah, I've never always liked reading Mishnah something.
No, I don't know what you're referring to. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
What does Mishnah mean?
Mishnah is to study. Okay. So if you look on page 463, you'll see an outline of what the way the Mishkan was laid out. There was the Mishkan itself toward the upper left. Then there was the Mizbeach, the altar, and then there was the outer yard. Now the Mishkan had different parts. So we're going to get to more details as the weeks go on. But there's a fascinating, and actually we're going to be focused on this for the next few weeks. That's Terumah. This week's Parshat Terumah is going to be with the clothing of the Kohanim, and then it'll be the actual construction of it all. And one of the commentaries asked the Ramban Nachman is asked a fascinating question, and he says, "Why is all of this in Chumash Shemos, in the book of Exodus? It should be pushed off to Vayikra. Vayikra deals with sacrifices and the work of the Kohanim. So why have it here? It should be, Shemos should be about Exodus and the servitude in Egypt, Exodus, getting the Torah. And then this whole part that deals with the Mishkan, that can be done later on in Chumash Vayikra." And he says a beautiful answer, because he says that the receiving of the Torah, that was goal one of getting out of Egypt. But goal two was, once you do that, is to create a home and an environment for ourselves at work and at home of holiness. And therefore, the Mishkan is not just, we want to emulate the tent of the matriarchs of Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. We want to emulate that, and we want to have the divine presence rest in it. And that's the ultimate goal of getting the Torah. It's taking the Torah and using that to create the environment in the house, like the Mishkan. So the Ramban's teaching us a very beautiful idea that we want our homes to be that way. You just did, but I'll take another one. Go ahead. Yes.
What happens to the Mishkan from the time when they entered Israel?
So there was a time where they used it. There was a time that they used it, but eventually they stopped using it, and eventually they built the temple. I'm sorry?
It stopped.
The Mishkan, this tabernacle, they had the temporary one, they built the permanent one. So here's a nice, there's a wonderful book in the other room that has a gold, that's in color, that gives you the one we learned about, the Ara and the Ark, and the Shulchan, and the Menorah. This one is going to be another week. That's the other altar that's used for the incense. But these are the three crowns: the crown of Torah, the crown of king.
During that period of time,
The Kohanim and the Levim were in charge of it.
they
the
were
Levite.
still in Shabbat, like during the time of Shaul, where there was the Kohanim still Yeah, it's boiled.
Yes, during the Mishkan, there was again different periods. There was the Mishkan in the desert, the Mishkan in Mishkan Shiloh. There was different periods of time.
I don't want, stuck in my head the Mishnah. We sing a song during Pesach about the Mishnah. We sing a song in Leviticus. You mentioned that Mishnah.
We say when we talk about numbers, we say who knows five are the books of, and six are the 6 sections of the Mishnah. That's what we say.
Say it during Pesach.
We don't keep on saying it, but we say it. Yes. All right. To be continued. So now I'd like to go into Parshat Mishpatim, which is a lot to do, which we're not going to do. We're not going to do all of it, but we're going to do some of it. That was last week's portion. That was a door. People come into the building. Can you believe it? No, it's people come into the building. They use the library. They come to class. It's amazing. So this is last week's Mishpatim. Those of you on Zoom, if you'd like a copy, just call the office. Shabbat out of the week, but
I don't need it. Need my script.
I have 2 for 2.
You said this is last week's, right?
yes, last week.
This is this for the 3 weeks.
So again, based upon what we're going to be talking about today, volumes of the oral Torah have been written. And this is, imagine there's an outline of a class and you get a copy of the outline. Do you know all the material that's going to be given in the class based upon the outline? No, but you have an idea, but you don't have the whole thing. So the written Torah is like an outline and the oral Torah fills in the gaps. So the first thing is that just as the 10 Commandments were given at Sinai, all of these laws were also given at Sinai. None of these are man-made; they're all given by God. That's the point number one. Now, there's a very beautiful book called Master Plan, written by Rabbi Carmel, based upon Rav Samson Hirsch, and he takes the mitzvos, the commandments, and divides them into 5 sections of what they're about. So I'm going to read you from his introduction. I'm just going to tell you what they are, and you're welcome to write it down or just remember it or just listen. Group 1 is justice towards other people, laws which form the basis of social legislation. Group 2, justice toward the environment, mitzvahs regulating the use and enjoyment of the environment. Group 3, love and concern for other people, mitzvahs fostering enhanced awareness of the needs of others. And Group 4 is enrichment of the environment, mitzvahs which fill our environment with God-oriented activities. And Group 5 is the inner life, mitzvahs addressed to our heart and mind, expressing an intimate relationship with God. I'll go through them again. Group 1, justice towards other people. Group 2, justice toward the environment. Group 3, love and concern for other people. Group 4, enrichment of the environment. Group 5, the inner life. So again, this is from Master Plan. And I do recommend the book. It has great details. So the first part of the Parsha deals with a Jewish slave that's in servitude. So laws of slavery. Now, the truth of the matter is that it sounds like slavery is such a terrible thing. Well, it's easy to say that, but the bottom line is today in the world, there's anywhere by estimate between 21 to 40 million people in servitude. So having a Torah perspective, of that is to do it the right way. So one of the ways a person became a slave is if they stole and didn't have money to pay back, then the Jewish person would be sold as a slave for 6 years, and the seventh year he would go out free. But the responsibility that the owner of the slave had was very great. He couldn't give him busy work, and the owner had to support his wife and children, and he would be exposed to Jewish family life, which is a very special thing. The slave would go out after 6 years. The seventh year would be free. If he doesn't want to, then he'd have to have his ear pierced as a reminder that he heard at Sinai, do not steal. He heard at Sinai, don't have any other gods, don't have any other masters except for God. Torah talks about if someone unintentionally kills somebody but wasn't careful, he could have watched the head of his axe. It was loose and he didn't take care of it. We're not talking about totally unintentional. That's not his fault. But if it's partially his fault, that he could have done better, then he has to go to the cities of refuge. Someone who kills intentionally would be killed. However, it has to be done based upon him having been warned not to do it, and witnesses that saw him actually do it. As I mentioned, the eye for an eye damages. That's not financial. That's only when you damage somebody. I'm sorry. You have to pay it. You don't take out the eye. You don't take out the eye. So you pay, causing the value of the person diminished by as a slave. What would the pain he caused? Medical expenses. By the way, which is a text proof that we can use doctors. You don't just say, "Oh, I'm going to rely on God." You should go for medical help. How did they get what? They had doctors too. They had doctors too. They did. They had doctors too in those days. Sure. And what absence from work, whatever he missed work, and the shame. If someone steals something from somebody else, he's required to pay double kefil. In other words, the item is worth $100. He's required to pay the item back plus another 100, or if he doesn't have the item, 200. If there's an ox or a sheep that he stole and then he shechted it, he slaughtered it or sold it, then he has to pay 4 sheep or 5 ox as payment back. Damage of a pit, you make a pit in the public domain, you have to pay for the damage that it caused. Now, a pit doesn't necessarily have to be a hole in the ground. It could be you leave a rock in the middle of the street and someone falls on it. You're responsible for that to the animal for sure. This was where we get these laws from the Torah. That's how many of the society gets the laws. Damage your animal does, or damage caused by a fire, even if you make it in your own yard. But if it spreads, you have responsibility for that. The idea of lending money to others is a big mitzvah. You don't have to be wealthy, and you cannot charge interest. And you should lend money to others, and the borrower can't lend it out. He has to return on time and be responsible for the damage unless it was something used in normal use. Again, there's many fascinating laws. Don't cheat or cause pain to a convert, because you were strangers too in the land. Don't cause pain to a convert, because you were also strangers in the land of Egypt. Don't remind him or her of her past. There's a cute story that I had many years ago with a Black woman that converted, and she came to talk to me. She's a very special person, and she came to talk to me and said, "Rabbi, I don't know what to do. I stay for the story. You'll get a kick out of it. Just for this part." And she came to, I don't know what to do. I go to a kosher restaurant, and people coming over, these perfect strangers. They want to know, am I converting? Did I convert? With who did I convert? And she was very, taken aback by it. I said, well, Batya, this is what I want you to do. Whenever someone comes over to ask you a question, you say, I'll answer any question you want, but it's $5. Said, what? Says, yeah. And they question, why are you doing that? I said, tell her your rabbi said that. That's what I said. Rabbi Czapnik said that it's $5. And 2 days later, she comes to my office and she says, Rabbi, I have a $10 donation for you. Because a bunch of people came over to me, and when I said line, $10, they said, oh, I'm sorry for asking. They realized that the questions were inappropriate, prying into somebody else's life. But then, let me finish the story, and then you can ask me the question. So she said, so I told it to most people backed off, but this one person said, okay, I'll pay. I have to answer these questions. So he asked her 2 questions, and he gave her $10. So she wanted to donate it to the Jewish Learning Exchange. I said, if it's the last $10 in the world, those are yours. You earned it. Someone asked you the questions and paid you for it. It's yours to keep. So it was just a cute story. Now you had what was your question? Okay. Sometimes it's appropriate to find out about the other person. Take care. Sometimes also people are making conversation. They want to know, and if the person doesn't mind, they can share their story with them. That's their choice. The Torah tells us the importance of not causing pain to a widow or an orphan. And applies to really everybody. You're not allowed to cause pain to anybody, but to a widow and an orphan, they're more sensitive, and you have to be extra nice to them and extra careful to be nice to them. And we talked about giving loans and not charging interest. And what has happened now is that there's a beautiful, beautiful idea. There's something called a gemach. Gemach stands for Gemilas Chasadim, acts of loving kindness, where people have things that they lend free of charge to other people. There is something called a wedding gown gemach. In many Jewish communities, there's beautiful things to lend. There's somebody in the community I know that if you move into a house in California, there's a lot of mezuzahs on the wall doors. You have a lot of doorways, and you can't afford to buy all the mezuzahs at one time. They'll lend you his mezuzahs, and until you can, slowly buy them and replace them, you can use those. You go to Jerusalem and you look up in the phone book Gemach, and there'll be pages of free loan societies that they're just it's just beautiful. Obviously, there's a free loan of money that there exists as well, but it can be anything and everything. It's just a very beautiful, beautiful idea within the Jewish community. You're going to find a lot of these. I mean, there's in Israel, not in LA, but in Israel, there's a free loan for mother's milk. For whatever reason, a person can't nurse, then she can get from someone else. Yeah. There's a beautiful idea of a pacifier gemach. In the middle of the night, your kid lost the pacifier, they're not sleeping. Go. There's no store open. So you go to the gemach, you take a new pacifier from there, and then the next day you replace it with a new one that you buy. So just there's the amount of chesed, of loving kindness there is really very special. Now the lender is not allowed to put pressure on the person to pay back if they don't have it, and the borrower shouldn't borrow if they don't have a possible way of paying it back. If they don't have a way of paying it back, they have to have a plan.
Donating stuff, so.
I don't understand
If they can't pay it back, they can't ask people, I need this.
They don't. If they can never pay it back, no, a free loan. You do a loan, yeah, money or anything, whatever it is. The gown gemach is not for yours to keep. You use it and you give it back, yeah. But you have to have a plan. Even I don't have money now, but I plan to get X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? And the borrower should try to work hard to be able to do it. We find also a law about not listening to lashon hara of evil talk about other people, and not believing it's true if someone tells you something negative about somebody else. Another mitzvah is returning a lost object. The very sweet story in the Gemara about Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa, that a person was resting outside his home, and he had chickens wrapped up like tied up with something. And the guy woke up, he overslept, and he left his chickens there without realizing it. So Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa had them in his house, and he took care of them, and he fed them, and he took care of them. And eventually they became more chickens, and it became a whole big job. It became too hard. So he sold them, and he bought goats, which are easier to take care of because they graze themselves, and they don't, and didn't make such a mess, I guess. And maybe a year or two later, the man comes by and says, "Hey, this is the place where I left the chickens." So he knocked on the door, and he said, "Did you find chickens here like a long time ago?" And he asked him, "Do you have a sign?" Well, yeah, they were wrapped in whatever was a blue, I don't know what he said, but I just remembered what it was, but like a blue thing. "Oh, so you're the owner. Come, let me give you your chickens." And he takes them to the backyard, opens up the gate and says, "Here are your chickens, take them." And he sees a bunch of goats. He says, "No," I said, "chickens, not goats." He said, No. Your chickens I used to buy the goats, and now the goats are yours. And he returned them. So, which is a very, very sweet story of returning what it is, and a very important idea. There's also don't mix milk and meat together, no eating them, no cooking them, no deriving benefit from them, and a very important mitzvah of midvar sheker tircha. Go far away from saying a lie. Be honest. God, to the Jewish people. It's in last week's Parsha, Parshat Mishpatim. I don't understand what your question is.
God spoke to one person and said that, and he passed it on.
God spoke to the entire Jewish people who gave the Ten Commandments, and then God spoke to Moshe, and Moshe taught them to the Jewish people. You're making a face. I don't know what you're making a face for.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't wonder, because it's all in the holy book. In last week's Parsha, it says not to cook milk and meat together, and we learn about it says it 3 times in the Torah, not to eat it, not to cook it, and not to derive benefit from it. So the last one is that we're going to talk about for now is midvar sheker tircha. Go far away from saying a lie. And the idea of going far away from saying a lie is a very important idea. And the beautiful story of the Gemara says of Reb Shimon ben Shetach, who he told his students to buy him a donkey. And they finally found a donkey that he could afford, and they were very excited because on the way back, they found there was a diamond stuck under the saddle, whatever, like part of it. And they came to the Rabbi and they said, "Wow, you're rich now. Now you don't have to worry about working so much. You have more time to teach us Torah." And he said, "1 second, did the man who sold the donkey know that it was diamond was there?" It said, "No, he didn't know." So then I bought a donkey. I didn't buy a diamond. Give it back to him. And they brought it back to him, and the man said, "Praises the God of Reb Shimon ben Shetach." So the importance of honesty is a very beautiful idea. There's a nice article which I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to mention the idea of responsibility. That this man who his parents made the choice that wasn't so common at the time to send a child to a Jewish school, and he said he learned responsibility. Because he learned, talk about oxen and damages and this and that, but the whole idea that there's a responsibility that you have to pay, that's something that he was that he studied by learning the laws in the written Torah and the oral Torah about you are responsible for your fire and this and that. I'll conclude just a sweet thing. I posed some of these questions to my students, 5, 6-year-olds. And I said to them, I gave them the scenarios, and I used their names. They said, Moshe made a hole in the ground, and Chaim's ox is walking down the street, falls into the hole. Who has to pay for it? So the kids figured out, Moshe. Okay. Okay. Now Yosef made a hole and he covered it over with a thick cover. And then Mendel came by and said, "Oh, this will be a good wall for my sukkah." And he took the wood away. And then Menachem's ox is walking down the street, falls into the hole. Who has to pay? So there became a whole debate in the class. The kids would say, well, the first guy made the hole, but the second guy took the cover until we got the clarity that when he put a good cover on it, that protected the ox from falling in. When the second guy took the cover off, he's responsible for the damage because he took the cover off. And then we had the third scenario. The third scenario was Meir made the hole and he put a weak cover on it. And someone took away the weak cover, and then the ox fell in and died. Who has to pay? And some of the kids got it. They said the first guy has to pay because the cover wouldn't have been sufficient enough to hold the ox up. We're talking about 6-year-olds coming up with these answers, which is great. And then I gave him the fourth scenario. What happens if in your backyard you make a hole and your neighbor's ox comes in and falls in and dies? Who has to pay? And one of the kids got it. He said he doesn't have to pay because the ox doesn't belong in your property. So it was great to see. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Unbelievable. So it's wonderful. What? But it's true. It happened this week in my class. You can come into class and listen. So Baruch Hashem, the kids are learning how to think, which is great, but they're also learning responsibility at a very young age to understand that we have responsibility to others and to our things and to other people's things. So that's a quickie synopsis of some of Parshas Mishpatim and Terumah as well. Any questions? Open for questions and thoughts, comments. All right. You're very welcome. Going once, twice. Any comments, questions? Roya, take care. Diane. Bracha, all the best.
Hi, Rabbi.
Thank you,
So-
Rabbi Czapnik.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye.
And iPhone is whoever iPhone is. Take care. Have a good one.
Rabbi,
Yes.
like when you're teaching the children responsibility, it's kind of abstract. But would they actually think able to use this in their lives? Do you think it's something that becomes their way of thinking? Is that what you're saying?
It's a very, very good question. This is an important question. He wants to know whether the kids are able to apply this to their own lives. And the answer is that it's like coats of paint or seeds that we're planting. People learn things and they not necessarily can't always necessarily do them all the time, but with enough information, enough learning, and enough trying, then a person can learn to do it. So is there a guarantee? No, there's no guarantees. But the idea is that they're being inculcated with ideas and concepts that they should be aware of. And many times it's pleasantly surprising how special they do and how they know and learn what the right thing to do is. So again, there's no guarantees, but we're teaching them to think about things that many people don't even bother to think about, and they're learning a sense of responsibility about it. And eventually, we hope that they will continue to apply it. That's what the goal is. So there's no guarantees, but it definitely is all part of the process of planting seeds to give them clarity about the sense of responsibility that we all have. Good question.
It's a good system. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rabbi, I had two questions I put in chat.
I didn't
I
see
was
them. I'm
wondering
sorry.
if you could show the crowns again, please.
Hold on. I'm sorry if I didn't show it to the class.
No, not at all. So the smallest is the one that goes, it's the crown of Torah, right?
Well, no, it's not size. It's not about size. It's about
Oh, it's not. Okay.
which is what the priority is. And I said the crown of Torah is greatest in the sense that we all have access to it. The crown of kingship it was only for those that were from the family of King David, and the crown of Kahuna was only for those that were descendants of Aaron.
Okay. And you also spoke about bringing or praying to bring the matriarchs to our home.
Not
How
to,
is it
to make our home like the home of the matriarchs.
to make our homes like theirs?
Right, exactly.
What's the appropriate prayer to say to do that?
There's no prayer. It's actions. It's how we live our lives that makes it a holy home. The atmosphere we create, what music we listen to, what pictures we have on the wall, how we spend our time there. Is it full with Torah books? Are we learning? Do we use it? Do we do acts of loving kindness? Are we praying? It's not a prayer. There's no vitamin to be. How do I be by the matriarchs? Well, take 2 pills a day and you'll be fine.
I wish we could do that.
I know that would be very good.
And how, if we have pets at home, obviously they're not very clean. How does that affect, or what can we do
You have to take care of them. That's all. You have to feed them before you eat. But pets that's not the issue of holiness or not. With the exception of a very dangerous pet, don't have dangerous pets.
No, not dangerous, but like, I'm sorry, if they pee on the rug.
So clean it up. You got to make sure to take them out for a walk so they don't do it in the house. That's all.
Okay.
All right. Feel good, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
All the best. Have a great week, everybody.